Hey, yo, salute to the people. It's the social forecast. Today's Friday, May 1st, 2020. And in this episode of Morning Coffee Ride, I have a couple news stories that I want to touch base on with you all. And, before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody to stay safe. You know, do what you can do to try and see this whole lockdown, this whole situation through as best you can. Because these two news stories, let alone the fact that they're tragic, let alone the fact that they're sad and that they have farther reaching implications and undertones. I just want to remind everybody that, not all of us are going to see this thing through. Not all of us are going to be on the other end of this thing, right? There are tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of deaths worldwide. And even when this lockdown is officially released and the all clear is officially there, even if just for the moment, there are a lot of people whose lives are changed forever because of lost loved ones, right? So many people. So there really is going to be a different norm on the other end of this thing. But one of the news stories that I came across, actually both news stories out of New York. One news story was an update that I read. It was posted on it was posted by a news article based company called 2Fat, and there was a couple out in New York back in March last month that were found dead in their New York home. Initially, police thought that this couple's death was the result of a murder-suicide, but they didn't release who they thought killed the other partner and then who committed the suicide. And then the firearm, the gun that was found at the scene, they hadn't released any information as far as who owned the gun or any other details about that. Now, shortly before this couple died, they had a babysitter in the home for their child. And the babysitter later reported to police that prior to them leaving the house on that day, that the couple had been drinking and they were playing with a firearm that they had in the home. And what police later determined was that this couple accidentally killed each other. They don't know who fired the shot, but they were playing with this firearm. They were intoxicated. They did not believe that it was loaded, is what the babysitter was reporting. And somehow the police didn't say where the wounds were, but somehow the gun was fired and a single bullet passed through both parties and they were both killed. Now, this is why I say try to find ways to get through this thing. Aside from mental health issues, aside from people who have addiction issues, right? Drugs, alcohol, what have you. Even the most sane, even the most mentally healthy person, when you're confined to a space for an extended period of time, not allowed to freely move around, right? This lockdown has had a lot of us essentially grounded for the past 5-6 weeks now, 7 weeks in some places. That's enough to drive a person crazy, right? We are not meant to be confined to a space, no matter how big that space is, for too long a period of time, right? You literally can start to go crazy. Or at the very least, you start to do things that you may not ordinarily do. Now, police did find other firearms and weapons in this home. I guess this couple or whoever was the owner of these firearms, just like to handle firearms. But they didn't find any history of domestic violence or anything that would suggest that this was done on purpose by either of the parties in this relationship with this couple. They strongly believe that this couple was handling this firearm drunk, under the influence, and either forgot that it was loaded, did not check, did not believe it was loaded, and a tragic accident happened. So I would implore everyone, right, as we continue on through this lockdown until it's officially given the all clear, right? I'm not talking about California opening up beaches prematurely. I'm not talking about Georgia, opening up businesses prematurely. When this thing is officially all clear and we are officially allowed to go back out into the world, a lot of us are going to be forever changed. A lot of us are going to be different. Not just the people who lost loved ones, not just the people who had to lose family members and friends. But even those of us just being confined to our personal spaces for so long, there's going to be a reacclimation. We may not readily see it, right? People who are not essential workers and who have not been leaving the house for the most part, there's going to be a readjusting period. There's a part of you that changes. There is a part of all of us that changes when things like this happen. And this is something that's unprecedented that you could never have imagined. So my point in bringing up this story is not to criticize this couple and say how stupid it was what they did. My point in mentioning this story is to say that find ways to occupy your time that are constructive, right? Find things to do that are going to help you keep your sanity. Don't succumb to the I mean, it's easy to just like lose yourself in all of this that's going on. But try your best to find something that you can do that's constructive to help you maintain some of your sanity. That's what I would say about that. And there's another news story, I think far more tragic, far more sad story, because this is not a one-off situation. And this news story that was posted by The Guardian is also based in New York. Local neighbors, residents were walking past a funeral home in New York, and there was one or a couple or several neighbors or nearby residents called 911 to report a strong smell coming from this funeral home. And when authorities responded, they found 4 rented U-Haul trucks out front of this funeral home. And come to find out, this funeral home had, between these trucks, 50 corpses, 50 dead bodies stored in these trucks on ice. Now again, this news story is not to criticize this funeral home. Yes, they should, as a funeral home, professionals who deal with human remains, you should know that you can't keep bodies on ice. That's just not enough, right? For human bodies, really even meat, right, that we consume, it has to be under continuous refrigeration at a certain temperature, right? A lot of times it's required to be kept frozen. But this story is not to criticize this funeral home, because if you think that this is not a common theme at just about every funeral home in just about every city around this country, then you're mistaken. Nobody ever thought that this would be, that there would come a day that we would have so many dead bodies at one time in such a short period of time that there's just no accommodations. Hospital morgues are overrun. They're putting bodies in refrigerated trailers. Funeral homes are over, capacity with dead bodies. And the sad thing in this story, right, is not to criticize this funeral home, but imagine that it's bad enough that one of your loved ones gets sick, right? And you can't go to the hospital to see them. Imagine that it gets worse and that they're dying and you can't go to the hospital to say your goodbyes. Imagine worse, that they pass away and you're not there to say your goodbyes. But, and so many people are talking about, well, the tragic loss of life, which is very tragic. But how much more sad is it that then those families, those loved ones, after that death, right, you can't properly mourn because you can't have the proper send-off, the proper homegoing for that family member. You can't even have the proper or traditional funeral because funeral homes are only allowing, certain number of people at a time to view the body and to be in the, in the space, in the area within that funeral home or that church to have that send-off. It's a very, very tragic thing. And to make it even worse, the people who have gone to these funerals to bury their loved ones and to see their loved ones off are reporting that the smell is so strong that it's even hard for them to conduct that funeral or participate in that funeral. And anyone who's been in funerals, you're not supposed to smell anything because those bodies are properly kept. They're properly refrigerated until it's time for them to you know, be, be shown for a wake or a funeral and then be buried. But that's not able to happen now because there's nowhere to properly keep these bodies to the correct temperature. And decay is starting sooner than it's supposed to, or not being delayed like it traditionally would be. And so it's bad enough that your loved one died and you couldn't say goodbye. And it's bad enough you have to figure out a more creative way to have the proper send-off. But now you can't even do that because the smell is just so strong, or that person is starting to decay and doesn't look like you want them to look for that funeral. This is tragic stuff, right? It's very, very sad. And this is what I mean too when I say, when we come out of this situation finally and we finally get the all clear, some things are not going to go back to normal, right? You think about all the people who are missing vacations or missing school or missing graduations, and we talk about missed proms and things like that, and that's sad. But if on June 20th, the first day of summer, we get the all clear, this thing is finally at a point where it's manageable, or there's a vaccine, pardon me, or there's a, it's safe enough for us to move around again, some people won't be able or want to move around because they lost loved ones. Their summer's going to be ruined. Vacations, that were planned might not happen because a spouse is no longer here, or family members are gone. This thing is going to look very different for the very, very foreseeable future. And so, I want everybody to stay safe. I see news stories like this and it's sad, but stay safe. Those are the two things I really wanted to touch on this morning for the morning coffee ride. Couple things before I sign out of here. After you see this video, I would like for you to head over to my other YouTube channel, Astrology from a Libra's Perspective. There, I do daily horoscope readings, right? Daily horoscope readings, if you're into astrology, you know what that is. And after I do these daily horoscope readings, I kind of break down what I think that horoscope is saying in my own words. So head over to Astrology from a Libra's Perspective, like, comment, and subscribe to that channel. Like, comment, and subscribe over here as well. Nothing else really to say, but stay safe, stay healthy, and try your best to get through this thing in one piece. It would be a shame for you to be in quarantine and lockdown, and luckily, not be affected by this sickness that's going around. And I'm using choice words, if you're wondering, because algorithms are not allowing people to use certain verbiage. That's just YouTube's algorithm. So now people are trying to work around that. But it would be a shame to evade the sickness and then be hurt or killed because you just went crazy and did something silly or something, unsafe in your home or wherever you are. So find a way constructive to get through the day. Find a way constructive to get through, this whole situation. And hopefully I'll see you all on the other side. But other than that, like, comment, and subscribe. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. It's the social forecast. Let me know what y'all think about this one. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.